This one is classic. How many times have you been wronged at work and had to swallow his anger so as not to lose his job? Maybe you were silent when you were humiliated in public at a meeting. Maybe you lowered your head when you saw someone less qualified taking credit for something you did. Or worse, maybe you felt that your boss is burning you little by little, silently, while posing as an exemplary leader in front of the team. If you identify with that, take a deep breath, because this happens to thousands of people every day. Every day, thousands of professionals are victims of injustice in the workplace. Competent, hard-working, loyal people who are ignored, silenced, and even undermined by bosses who know exactly how to manipulate the perception of everyone around. And the most revolting, they come out as heroes. They wear the mask of the good manager while crushing their subordinates behind the scenes. This is the reality of those who live in a toxic and competitive environment, where meritocracy is just speech, and those who rise are not those who work the most, but those who know how to play the game of appearance better. Unfair boss, manipulated meetings, open favoritism, veiled sabotage, and that constant feeling that you are walking in a minefield. Any misstep, and you're labeled as troubled, emotional, difficult to deal with. And then you start to ask yourself, is it me? Am I exaggerating? Am I getting paranoid? No, you're not. Crazy. And no, you're not exaggerating. This feeling of suffocation, this desire to explode, this anguish of feeling that no one sees what you are going through, it is real. And the system was often made for just that, to silence you, to keep those who oppress in control while you consume yourself in silence, afraid of losing your livelihood, your reputation, or your sanity. But let me tell you something. There is a way to turn this around, without having to get into direct confrontation, without giving ammunition to those who want to see you fall, and without becoming another piece of the toxic machine. What I'm going to show you here is the path that many professionals have discovered, a strategic and intelligent way to deal with unfair bosses, protect yourself from the traps, and still come out stronger, more respected, and with its employment intact. Because while you're out there trying to understand what you did wrong, your unfair boss is 3 steps ahead, building a narrative where you look like the weak, the rebellious, the incompetent. But that can change. You can regain control of your image. You can dismantle the manipulation without saying a word. You can make him burn himself. And if you think you need to yell, butt heads, or become the rebellious employee to achieve this, you are wrong. The secret is behind the scenes. It is in observing, recording, repositioning, and attack smartly at the right time. It's not about confrontation. It's about strategy. It's about armored reputation, emotional intelligence, and surgical communication. If you're tired of being left behind, if you feel like you're being wronged at work, and want to learn how to defend yourself without becoming a target, this video is for you. Stay with me until the end, because what comes next can open your eyes in a way that no one has ever shown you. And most importantly, it can save you from a quiet resignation that may already be in the works, and you didn't even realize it. Now breathe and pay attention, because the truth behind this type of boss begins to be exposed from now on. Toxic bosses know how to shield themselves. They know exactly how to manipulate the perceptions of the people around them. They know when to smile, when to praise in public, when to look approachable. All millimetrically calculated to build the image of leadership that covers the real game of manipulation that goes on behind the scenes. And then, those who see it from the outside believe it. The team believes. The board believes. And you who are experiencing the abuse find yourself more and more isolated, more discredited, more powerless. And the most dangerous thing about all of this is that manipulation is masked as constructive feedback, culture of continuous improvement, alignment talk. But deep down, it's just a mechanism to undermine your self-confidence, to keep you insecure, to make you doubt your own perception, to make you shut up. It is not an exaggeration. This happens every day. The amount of reports I receive of people being wronged at work is absurd, and the pattern repeats itself. The boss blames everything on the employee, spreads small gossip disguised as worried comments, and builds a subtle narrative where he is the mentor, the hero, the firm leader who only wants the good of the team. Meanwhile, he hides his dubious decisions, protects his favorites, and uses fear as a tool of control. A follower recently told me that she was exposed at a general meeting. The boss turned to the entire team and said, "So-and-so has delivered less than expected, so we are reorganizing the demands." But what no one knew was that she was overloaded, taking demands from another sector, and on top of that solving problems that the boss himself missed. But he didn't tell that, right? He preferred to throw her into the fire. And do you know what happened? He was praised for his transparent stance. They said he was a manager with a firm hand. He left the meeting with his reputation tarnished and self-esteem in pieces. This is cruel and more common than you might think. And you know what's most revolting? This type of boss has usually had years of practice in the game of corporate manipulation. They don't become like that overnight. They learn how to play the game. They know who they need to be kind to. They know exactly what to say at each meeting. They know how to plant subtle doubts about you without seeming like they're attacking. They don't scream, they don't hit the table, they smile as they weaken you. They use silence as a weapon, ignore you strategically, cut you off from important conversations, exclude you from decisions, and make it seem casual. But it is not. These attitudes are coldly calculated. This is what we call professional micro-sabotage. And often, no one notices. Only you. Only those who are experiencing this in their skin. And then comes the worst. You try to talk to someone. You try to expose. You try to explain. And people look at you as if you're exaggerating, as if you're too sensitive, or even as if you're creating drama. And that isolates you even more. You begin to feel that you are alone against the system. And in many cases it is, because the corporate environment, especially in companies with rigid hierarchies and a culture of toxic competitiveness, favors this type of behavior. Those who impose themselves too much are seen as rebellious. Those who complain are labeled as problematic. And those who endure everything in silence are promoted as an example of resilience. The system rewards silence. It rewards submission. But let me remind you of one thing. You're not living this because you're weak, nor because you don't have a professional profile, nor because you are too emotional. You are living this because there is a specific type of dysfunctional leadership that feeds on the insecurity of others. Bosses who feel threatened by competent employees. Leaders who, instead of inspiring, need to demean others to feel superior. This is the truth that many people don't have the courage to say. Toxic bosses are afraid. Fear of losing control, fear of not being seen as authority, fear of someone on the team shining brighter than them. And when they feel that fear, they take action. And it's not to improve, it's to neutralize. And who is on the front line of this silent war is you. You, who go to work every day with a knot in your stomach. You, who think 1,000 times before giving your opinion in a meeting. You, who spend hours redoing something because your boss made a vague and malicious criticism. You, who have ever thought about quitting, not because of the job itself, but because of the climate, the tension, the feeling that they are always waiting for you to make mistakes. And perhaps, at this moment you are wondering, but if this is so, what can I do? How can I react without being harmed? Because that's what holds you back, right? The fear of being seen as insubordinate, the fear of getting burned with leadership, the fear of being discarded. And I understand that fear. It is legitimate. He is the one who keeps you there, quiet, pretending that everything is fine, even when you are already emotionally exhausted. Because losing your job, especially in an uncertain scenario like the one we are experiencing, is too big a risk. But there is a fine line between protecting yourself and canceling yourself. And what I want to show you here is precisely the balance point, the point where you can start acting, positioning yourself, shielding yourself, without getting into direct confrontation, without putting your position at risk, and without losing the respect of those who really matter. Because yes, it is possible to turn the tide. It is possible to turn the tables in your favor, even when it seems that all the cards are stacked against you. But before showing you how, you need to understand what's really at stake. Because this is not just a matter of wounded ego. This goes far beyond a grumpy boss or a misplaced criticism. This is about your emotional, about your mental health, about your professional image, and above all, about your right to work in an environment that respects you, that recognizes your value, and that doesn't make you doubt yourself every day. So, if so far you have felt that someone is finally describing exactly what you live, breathe. Because now that you understand why all this happens, the most important moment of this video has arrived. I'll show you how to react, how to protect yourself, how to counteract this type of behavior without having to raise your voice, without becoming the rebellious employee, and above all, without losing your job, because your career deserves to continue, but you don't have to keep being targeted. And from now on, that's exactly what you're going to learn. And now that you understand why all this happens, the next question is, what happens if you do nothing? What happens if you keep trying to adapt, trying to please, trying to fit into a system that is clearly meant to silence you? The answer is harsh, but it needs to be said. If you remain silent, he will come up stomping on you. And you may even end up fired for looking problematic. And no, it's not an exaggeration. This happens all the time. You think you're being strategic by staying calm, by swallowing your frustration, by not reacting. But on the other side, his silence is being interpreted as weakness, as agreement, like acceptance, and toxic bosses know very well what to do when they realize that someone offers no resistance. The truth is that in the logic of the toxic environment, you either take a stand or you are positioned, and almost always in a negative way. Because when you don't control the narrative about yourself, someone else will do it for you. And guess who? Yes, the same boss who is manipulating everything, you from behind. It is at this point that many professionals end up being unfairly labeled. That employee is difficult to deal with. The new hire is not proactive. She doesn't wear the company's shirt. And the worst, these labels are spreading without you realizing it. They contaminate their image within the organization. You keep delivering, you keep being professional, you keep doing everything right, but something seems out of place. You feel it in people's eyes. Sit in the silences, in meetings where you are no longer heard, in decisions from which you are excluded. You start to disappear, even though you're still there. And this is one of the cruelest effects of subtle harassment at work, erasure. It's not about yelling at you. It's not about publicly humiliating you every day. It's about making you invisible little by little, undermining your relevance, making sure that your name is not remembered in promotions, referrals, opportunities. And do you know why? Because someone back there made a point of starting to paint you as someone expendable, and you, without realizing it, didn't react. And the environment believed. This is all corroding. It starts with a doubt. Am I really the problem? Then comes the guilt. I don't think I'm doing enough. And finally, paralysis comes. If I defend myself, I will look unbalanced. Better not to say anything. But what you don't realize is that this silence is being used against you. It's putting you exactly where the toxic boss wanted, vulnerable, discredited, and isolated. And this has real consequences, emotional, physical, and professional consequences. You start to have trouble sleeping. He feels constant tension before going to work. Your performance drops, not because you're incompetent, but because your psychology is being bombarded daily. And then the boss looks at you and says, "See, he is not performing as he used to." And this becomes another justification to exclude you from opportunities. One more. excuse to weaken yourself in front of others. It's a cycle, a silent cycle, but devastating. And if you think the company will notice and defend you, I need to warn you. In most cases, this does not happen, because the unfair boss is the one who knows how to play the game of good leadership. He knows what to talk to the board. He knows how to deliver numbers. He knows how to shield his image with beautiful words and motivational speeches. Meanwhile, you are being eroded, and when he finally decides to speak, it already seems too emotional. Complainer, uncontrolled, too much drama for too little. And then, my friend, the rope breaks on your side. That's why I tell you with all the letters, being silent is not protection, it's exposure. You need to understand that taking a stand is not the same as rebelling. Reacting is not the same as confronting. There is a way to turn the tables in an intelligent, calculated, strategic way. But for that, you need to act. Because the longer you wait, the more the situation consolidates. It is more difficult to deconstruct the negative image they are creating of you. And the closer you get to being replaced, silenced, or even discarded. And look, often dismissal comes as a surprise. You think everything was fine, that he was keeping his balance, that he was being prudent. And one day, out of nowhere, comes that famous, "Unfortunately, we are ending its cycle." And you run out of ground without understanding what happened. But the truth is that the plan had been in the works for a long time. Only you didn't know. It's heavy to say this, but it's real. So, if today you feel that you are being wronged, if you feel that your boss is undermining your trust, if you notice that your image within the company is being distorted, do not ignore the signs. The worst thing you can do is pretend it's not happening. Because when you pretend, you give permission for it to continue. You become an accomplice in what hurts you. And here's an important point. This doesn't mean yelling in the hallway, sending emails, confronting bosses, or talking in front of the team. No, this will only reinforce the image that you are unstable. The way out is not in shouting. It's in the strategy. You need to turn the tables without looking like you're playing. It needs to start protecting its reputation quietly, meticulously, intelligently. You need to observe the standards, record behaviors, create a history, and little by little, build bridges with other influential people in the company. Show your value in other ways. Neutralize sabotage with presence, consistency, and emotional control. And yes, you can do that. Even though I was tired, even if you feel undervalued, even with fear. Because the fear of acting is great, but the cost of not acting is much higher. I know that maybe now you are reliving difficult times while listening to me. Situations that hurt, words that marked you, silences that hurt you. But let me tell you something. You're still in the game. And while you're in the game, you can change the course of this story. You have already understood what happens when you choose silence. You've felt the weight of every look crossed, of every meeting where your voice wasn't heard, of every compliment that should have come to you, but ended up on the account of someone who didn't move a finger. Have you ever noticed how toxic bosses act with surgical precision to emotionally destabilize those who represent in threat? And now that the truth is wide open before you, comes the question that you may never have had the courage to ask out loud. How do I turn this game around without losing my job? Because yes, there is a way. There is a strategy. No, you don't have to turn into someone you're not. You don't need to butt heads or make a scandal or go out distributing hints in the team's group. Quite the opposite. The real turning point comes from strategic silence, intelligent presence, the ability to position oneself without exposing oneself to attack. And that's what I want to tell you about now. Imagine this: the game is being played against you. But what if you, little by little, start to take control without anyone noticing? What if you start acting behind the scenes, just like they do, but with truth, intelligence, and purpose? That is what will start to happen from now on. And the first step to turn this game around is something simple but extremely powerful. The silent record. Yes, I know it may sound silly, but you have no idea how strong a well-built track record is. Every mean comment, every weird situation, every vague criticism, every meeting in which you were exposed. Write everything down. Put the date, the time, who was present, what was said, the tone of voice, the context. Save emails. Take screenshots of important conversations. Create a file of your own, outside the company, secure, where you record the patterns. Because it's one thing for you to say, "My boss treats me badly." It's another thing to show a timeline of unfair attitudes, with facts, words, dates. This changes the game. This gives you proof. It protects you. And no, it's not to use it now. It's not to go out and confront. It's to have up your sleeve. It is his shield. It's your guarantee that when you need it, you'll be armed, without raising your voice, without falling into provocation, because what toxic bosses fear most is someone who protects themselves with intelligence. Now, the second step is what I call armored reputation. This is one of the most powerful secrets that exist in the corporate environment. When your image starts to erode from the inside, you need to rebuild it from the outside. And how do you do that? Building bridges, connecting with other leaders, showing your value in a discreet but effective way to people who are above or next to your boss. How? Getting involved in transversal projects, participating in commissions, proposing improvements that impact more than one sector, asking for feedback from other managers. When you start to show your competence outside of your boss's bubble, your image starts to strengthen where it really matters. And that creates a shield, because when someone tries to burn your image, and they will, other people will think, "But wait, I worked with him on such a project. He was excellent." This breaks the toxic narrative. This plants doubts in the minds of those who are about to believe the lies. It shows that you have allies, that you are not vulnerable, and more importantly, it shows that you have value beyond what your boss wants to show. And here comes an important detail. You don't need to flatter anyone. You don't need to force sympathy. Just do well what you already know how to do, but with a focus on strategic visibility. Show results. Offer help with something punctual. Share a helpful idea. When you deliver real value, you become remembered for the right reasons. And that, my friend, is worth gold in the workplace. Now, the third step, and perhaps the most challenging, is to master the art of strategic communication. Yes, because this is where a lot of people slip. The desire to react, to retort, to defend oneself with anger is great. But that's exactly what the toxic boss wants, to destabilize you, take you out of control, make you seem emotional, uncontrolled, impulsive. And then he wins. But when you respond calmly, with presence, with strategic questions, everything changes. A classic example, when he gives you a vague criticism like, "You're not being collaborative," instead of retorting with justifications, ask in a neutral and confident tone, "Can you explain to me what made you think that?" Ready. You return the weight of the accusation to him, and it does so without being aggressive, without raising your voice, without exalting himself. It just demands clarity. This disarms the manipulator, because he didn't expect you to react with structure. He counted on his emotion, but you were right. And when you bring reason to an emotionally manipulative environment, you change the power dynamic. Want another example? When he cuts you off in conversation, wait for the right time and calmly say, "I would like to conclude my reasoning, if possible." Or, "I believe this information can complement what you're saying." You enter with class, firmly, with presence, and little by little, people begin to realize you are not aggressive, you are strong. You have mastery. You know how to position yourself without confrontation, and that changes the way they see you. And that, yes, is turning the tide. That's when you start to control the narrative, when you start moving with strategy, when you realize that your strength lies in not falling into the trap of reactivity. And all this without threatening your position, without compromising your job, without giving reasons to label you as the difficult employee. Of course, it requires patience, self-control, emotional intelligence, but believe me, it's worth it. Because by doing so, you're not just defending yourself, you're building something. It's strengthening its base. You are showing the company and yourself that you know how to deal with pressure, conflict, foul play, and that even so, he maintains his posture. This is what differentiates those who survive from the toxic environment of those who can prosper in it. And yes, you can thrive. By the way, comment below on a phrase that represents you at this moment. It can be, I'm going to turn the tables on it, no more silence, or even, now I understand the way. Write it down. This is not just to engage, it's for you to assert yourself, for you to put on record as a commitment to yourself that this turning point has begun. Here, now. And if you have already applied any of these strategies, tell your experience as well. What has been your smartest reaction so far? What did you say or do that made you come out of an unfair situation stronger? Your story may inspire someone else here in the comments, and if until now you thought there was no way out, prepares the heart, because the next step will show you how to maintain that strength, that new posture, until the end. Because turning the tables is just the beginning. What's next? It is the power to sustain the turnaround. Now that you understand every step, every movement, every silent turn you can make within a toxic environment, you may be feeling stronger. And if you are, it's because a part of you knew deep down that you couldn't keep quiet anymore, that it was no longer possible to swallow injustice after injustice, criticism after criticism, exposure after exhibition. While his boss played the hero, he smiled at everyone and continued to manipulate things behind the scenes as if he were untouchable. You don't have to be held hostage by an unfair boss. You need to be strategic. You need to understand that in the corporate environment, especially when we talk about toxic bosses, subtle moral harassment, veiled favoritism, professional invisibility, and emotional sabotage, what separates those who sink from those who survive, or rather, those who win, is the way they position themselves. And you've just learned how to do that without losing your job, without wearing out, without turning into someone you are not. Because yes, it is possible to maintain its essence. It is possible to protect yourself without becoming someone cold, aggressive, or indifferent. It is possible to impose yourself with elegance. And most importantly, it is possible to be respected without having to shout. Real respect in the workplace is born from self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and clarity of positioning. It's not about confronting, it's about driving, about observing calmly, strengthening yourself behind the scenes, recording what needs to be recorded, building a reputation that goes beyond the bubble of your sector. It's about answering mean criticism with accurate questions, about shielding yourself with presence, about showing value where no one is expecting it. Because this is surprising. This deconstructs the toxic narrative. This makes it clear that you are in control. And when you're in control, the tables turn. Now, let me tell you something. The mere fact that you have stayed this far already shows one very important thing. You are committed to your own turnaround. You no longer want to live in the shadow of an unjust leader. You no longer want to carry the weight of a corporate environment that wears you down, silences you, sabotages you. And believe me, just the fact that you are looking for this type of content, connecting with these words, reflecting on all this seriously, already puts you many steps ahead of those who are still paralyzed by fear or denial. And look, maybe no one has told you that yet, but you deserve recognition. You deserve to work in a place where you are valued, where your ideas have a voice, where your effort is not invisible, where you don't have to choose between your mental health and the stability of your salary. This is not too much to ask. That's the bare minimum. But while that doesn't happen, while you're still in that environment that challenges you emotionally every day, Your best weapon is strategy. So, keep this thing I'm going to tell you now. Don't get lost trying to protect yourself. Find yourself strengthening yourself. And if you've made it this far with me, I want to make you a direct and sincere invitation. Subscribe to the channel now. Yes, now. Because if this content helped you in any way, know that what lies ahead will give you even more tools, more clarity, and more preparation to deal with the worst types of sabotage in the workplace. Here, we don't pass cloth to abusive leadership. Here, we don't normalize corporate toxicity. Here, we talk about everything that no one has the courage to expose. And we teach you how to deal with it in a practical, emotionally intelligent way and with as little wear and tear as possible. Click the subscribe button, turn on notifications. You'll be part of a community of professionals who are tired of shutting up and who are ready to turn the tide. People like you, people who feel, who suffer, who think 1,000 times before acting, but who no longer want to accept the role of victim at work. And if you have reached the end of this video, comment below now. I am stronger than sabotage. Write that. Leave it on record like a manifesto of his, as a message to yourself, to your boss, to the environment around you, that you woke up, that you understood, that you now play smart. Also, leave your like. It shows me that this content made sense to you, and it gives me the strength to keep creating videos that help you grow, protect yourself, and occupy the space that is yours on merit. Not out of flattery, not out of politics, not out of appearance. And look, if you want to anticipate even more and find out how to identify a saboteur boss before it even harms you, click on the video that is appearing here on the side of the screen. There I'll show you the invisible signs that no one told you, but that make all the difference when you learn to recognize. You deserve to work in peace, you deserve to be respected, and you deserve to win. The time to start, it is now. I'll see you in the next video.